Inside the Birds is back. Hello, everybody. It is Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher here with another Inside the Birds in the middle of the week. And we don't have a game to break down. Now, I swear, I know the bye week is much needed, Adam, and we get a nice break. But when we do these pods, right, and then we did like the review of the offense and the defense, and now in the middle of the week, instead of doing a breakdown because there's no game, it just makes you realize – it's like a long time. It's a welcome respite, but I feel like it's been forever since the Eagles played.
And we got a lot of information. The beauty of this show is, Geoff, things have happened, and we're going to get into some of your reporting for the big COVID story. We've got injury updates. We got a ton of information, Geoff. This is actually a great show today. I'm really looking forward to this.
It is. A lot of information. As we told our listeners that we would do, we're going to do an AskITB show. We're going to answer a bunch of questions that have been building up over the past few weeks, really since the start of the season, for people who hit us up on the Inside the Birds Facebook community page or our Twitter page or left us a review, and we're getting more reviews on our Apple podcast platform, so really appreciate that. If you could still continue to give us the 5-star review on the Apple podcast, we'd really appreciate it.
You know what we'll do? Yeah, Geoff, what we'll do is we'll grab, on the next show, we'll grab a couple of the Apple questions because we took these all from the board. There's so many of them. And there's so many good questions on our Facebook board that I was like, listen, this is actually this is actually going to take up we couldn't take 30 questions. We took our best 10. But yeah, you're right, Geoff. The Apple questions are a couple good ones there. So we'll grab them, I promise, for the next show.
Yeah, what we can do is also put them I can build them into the pregame show script. So we can answer
good idea. Even better.
On
Thank
Sunday.
You. Yeah.
And make sure you're checking out the Inside the Birds pregame live show with myself, Adam, Greg Cosell, Trey Thomas. We start up 10 a.m. This Sunday. We'll be at the Goose Island Brewhouse in Fishtown, but you can catch us on any of the platforms on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. And it's a great show, so I encourage everybody to check it out. Let's get into some news here. Obviously, things this week are altered. They're adjusted for the Eagles because of an assistant coach who tested positive for COVID-19. And so what was described to me, Adam, was intensive protocol for COVID-19, meaning the facility will stay open and the team will be able to practice as it normally does. However, when they are not practicing, the players will then be doing everything virtually. They're not going to be inside the classrooms. They're going to be maintaining as much social distance as possible. So there are some other things that go on. I mean, it's not just meetings, right, and practice. There are some other things that go on inside the NovaCare during the week that is for game preparation that will also be adjusted. I don't have to go into the little minutia. I was just told that most things that are on the schedule that require people to be even within 6 feet in a closed quarters are now going to be separate, and people are going to do virtual learning in response. So
Gotcha.
that obviously is not ideal, but I think we've seen a lot of situations this year so far where teams had to miss a practice or two or had their schedules adjusted, and it doesn't mean that they've lost, right?
Yeah. It's always concerning because we don't know who the coach is. We know it's not Doug Peterson. We know it's not Ken Flagel, who I guess he talked this week.
Well, actually, they all had – I'm not 100% sure that we do know that because all of the assistant coaches – so like Justin Peele spoke this week, Press Taylor spoke. They all did Zooms, so you don't really know.
Oh, yeah. Well. Here's what we do know because I know you knew of. Let's see. Today's Wednesday morning, so Tuesday morning, I think or whenever you heard it, the question would be, and we don't know who the coach is, but you just from a game planning standpoint, because I've talked to team. I remember talking to the Titans when they were the first team to really have an issue, and they had a major issue.
Yeah,
playing a Tuesday game against Pittsburgh, but. I remember what they went through was insane, Geoff. 3 times they were told to go back to work, then they left. Go back to work, then they left. Over a week's period. In fact, they never practiced up to Pittsburgh. They only had long walkthroughs. And this situation with Eagles is, as of Wednesday morning, is obviously pales in comparison. It's minor compared to that. But it's still a coach who's involved, if you're coaching a position or involved in game planning. So, look, but as you said, and remember, Doug Peterson was the first coach that we know of, Eagles-wise, to have this. He had it for a brief period of time. He did his work. Was it before? I can't remember. It's been so long. Was it before draft or after the draft? I don't remember.
Oh, it was training camp. It was
Training
because
camp.
Deuce
Okay.
Staley took over.
Yeah. Right. Juice is the assistant head coach. I mean, it's been so long. So much has happened with all these teams. I can't remember exactly when Doug had it, but
yeah, it was the first start of training camp when they were still just doing mostly strength and conditioning stuff. So really, he didn't miss a whole lot.
Right now, if it's a system position coach, excuse me, if it's a position coach, because the Eagles are one of these few teams that has an assistant to the position coach, that assistant position coach can run the meetings or meeting for this coach until he returns. So it's not a super big deal, but it's kind of alarming when you're not expecting it. You're like, uh-oh. But as you said, teams have been going through this. They have a plan for it. With the intensive protocols, that we've seen a bunch of the Colts did it. The Falcons did it most recently.
Mm-hmm.
Several teams have done it. They just adjust their scheduling. They have the Zoom meeting from home.
Right.
If they have to, and they spread everything out, and it's okay. But look, you'd reported, I think, on a show. I mean, I'm talking like, correct me if I'm wrong, was it back in March? Something like March or April. You were one of the first reporters to put it out there that just in terms of ownership around the National Football League, I think you said Jeffrey Lurie was very out in front and making sure everything was done the right way.
Yeah, there was a time they were considering trying to expand the rooms at the NovaCare complex to make them bigger for social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they settled on at training camp having their classroom sessions at the Link, which has big media rooms and locker rooms in the bowels of the stadium. So that's what they did instead. Okay. Yeah, but Jeffrey, and they wear those sensors, right? I don't know if every NFL team has that.
They do. No, every team. Every team, I've talked to several coaches and executives. Every single NFL coach, assistant head coach wears them all the time inside the building. All the executives do. The only time you're allowed to not wear it is when you're in your office alone. If somebody's coming in, you have to have it on, and that sensor will go off. Actually, what happened was at Eagles practice, someone from their media was within 6 feet of me, and it came on right away in training camp. And they,
sure that wasn't the Caplan alarm? Are you sure that wasn't a different sensor?
Right. Very good. But that guy, it was kind of funny, And then one coach had texted me during training camp and showed me what he was wearing. It's a monitor to make sure you're not within 6 feet. So, look, it is what it is. It's you got to get through this. In the season, the commissioner said, this week in their meetings this week that. Very clear, they're going to get this season done. The league's done a phenomenal job with the NFLPA of really cracking down on everything and making sure they get through it. So there you go with the COVID-19 with one of the Eagles' assistants.
All right, well, there you go, and that's about it. I mean, as to both of our knowledge, at the time that we record this, there's no indication that anything's going to change with the 1 o'clock game at MetLife Stadium. So
things can, though.
No, I know. I said right now, there's no indication.
Right. As of Wednesday morning, before Wednesday's practice, we're going to get into the transactions and injuries because those apply to Wednesday's practice and Thursdays and Fridays. But yes, as far as we know, nothing else is on the horizon, and we'll see what happens.
All right, let's get into some of those transactions. To me, obviously the biggest one, and it happened on Monday, was the active. And it's funny, we talked about it in the podcast that dropped at 6 a.m. on Monday. We wondered when Isaac Seumalo would come back, and sure enough, later that day, they announced that he's activated into the 21-day practice window. This has normally been a good situation for most players. I think everybody who's been activated, except for 1 or 2, has been able to play that week. So I guess we'll see with Isaac Seumalo. Do you have more info on that?
Yes, and we're going to get into all of them, but I'm told by multiple people that the expectation is that Seumalo will play this week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Now, I want to put the disclaimer, the asterisk. And for people who are quoting, I appreciate it, but let's get this right. The expectation is that he'll play. They practiced later today for the first time. He was involved in Monday's little light workout, but he's got to get through practice. We're going to get into Jeffrey and Sanders and Lane Johnson and Malik Jackson, all these guys. But as far as Seumalo is concerned, my understanding is they expect him to play. And I will say this also. As much as people criticize the medical staff, this is, obviously a revised one. They've done a really good job of getting players rehab, like really good job. Ted Raff and what's the other guy's name who came for the Vikings?
Tom Hinkle.
Yeah, thank you. Hunkley.
I'm sorry, Hunkley.
Who was here and then he went to Minnesota with Eric Sugarman, and he came back. They've done a really good job. As far as listen, the Eagles have had an unprecedented amount of players get hurt, sometimes like all at the same time. But it's been a challenge for them, and it's a credit to them. They've done a really good job. Jeffrey stuff is bizarre to me. I don't blame them. I don't quite understand it. But
there's
anyway,
more to
that's
meets
what I
the
got.
eye there.
I'm sorry?
I said, yeah, I agree. I think there's more than meets the eye with that situation.
Okay. So that's what I know about Isaac Seumalo. We'll see how he does in practice. But the expectation is going into the practice week, for any team that comes off of a bye, it always starts on a Wednesday if you play on Sunday. And you got Thursday and Friday, Saturday walkthrough, Sunday game. And right now it's looking good, but he's got to get through practice without setbacks.
All right. Well, we'll probably have more on that later this week on our Friday morning podcast. We should have a better, clearer idea.
Looking good now.
Looking good. Yeah. For the third or fourth time, I think go ahead.
No, we'll see. He's got to get through practice.
Yes. For the third or fourth time, I believe, in his career, defensive tackle Trayvon Hester has been signed to the Eagles. He is on their practice squad. He's a defensive tackle. He's been with the Eagles a couple of times before. I've always liked him for this scheme. I think he's played, decently well when he's been given the opportunity. Isn't he not who did the double doink? Wasn't that Trayvon Hester?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
There you go, guys. Right. For the folks who are watching on YouTube, and by the way, man, our YouTube traffic has gone out of its mind. Like, it's been doubled.
It's been great. Thank you for.
I know they don't want to see me, but so they must want to see you.
It's the backdrop.
Right. I need to keep doing that, but he's. The thing is, we said this on the last show. They were going to sign either Rush or Hester. I just didn't know when. So they signed Hester, so they're not going to sign Rush, and they don't need to. They have a bunch of D tackles, but to me, they need someone who's experienced, and Hester is that guy. So they could call him up on Saturday. Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern for Sunday games is the time frame to sign him, and if not, then they'll just dress 3 defensive tackles, assuming Malik Jackson plays.
Right, and to clear room for him on the practice squad, they had to release running back Adrian Killins, who unbelievably wound up playing in a game this year. Right? Was it not San Francisco that the game that he played in? Oh, yeah,
they tried a trick. Didn't they try a
little kind of motion and pass out of the backfield, and that was it. Yeah. So, he was one of those guys you were excited about in training camp because of all the speed, but obviously I wouldn't surprise me if he's back in 2 or 3 weeks anyway. We'll see if he gets picked up by somebody else. The following players protected on the practice squad: Jamon Brown, tight end Jason Kroom, cornerback Michael Jacquet, and defensive tackle T.Y. McGill. So any of those guys can be elevated. You did hear Jim Schwartz this week. I don't want to say he went overboard or anything, but he had some nice words for Michael Jacquet playing against Dallas in his limited, he played a lot, but he just didn't get thrown at all.
Exactly. So Thank you for saying that, because someone I really respect in the NFL business happened to listen to our last show. The show we did on defense, yes, and took umbrage with something I said about Jacquet, that he played well. He goes, look, the guy, someone who watched the tape, he goes, look, the guy wasn't really thrown in very much. He just didn't hurt them. Whenever he was supposed to make a play, he made it. And remember what Schwartz said in that Zoom session on Monday. He said, look, he was never even in their game plan to bring him up, but just because of they were down 2 cornerbacks, then they had to do something, and he was the guy. So, okay. But he's got length. He didn't hurt them. He played a lot. What did he play, 30 snaps, something like that?
He played, fairly significantly because Darius Slay was out of the game.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Now, it sounds like Slay is okay. I mean, I did not – remember, he left the game. Doug said the next day he was going to be all right.
He's
so
fine.
It sounds like
he'll be good. So let's get into the rest of the injuries. So the following players are expected to be available barring any setbacks: Seumalo, Sanders, Jeffery. We'll get into that because I know you may or may not have something to add, but I know that we need to explain the Jeffery situation
to the best of our ability.
Right. I've thrown my hands up 10 times on this thing. So Sanders, Jeffery, Seumalo. We'll see Elaine Johnson. We'll get into him in a second. Blake Jackson should play, but he's got a quad strain. He keeps re-injuring it. So we'll see on that. So let's get started with Sanders.
Okay.
We had said on our show a couple weeks ago, the expectation is that he would return for the bye. Nothing has changed.
Okay.
He participated in Monday's workout. I expect him to practice later today. Now, even if he's limited, as long as on Friday he takes, we'll know. We'll have that for our Sunday show. As long as he takes all the reps on Friday, he's playing. You don't have to worry about that. Let's get to Jeffery. So, again, we said a couple weeks ago, pretty strongly, the Eagles expected Jeffery to return after the bye against the Giants. Now, I did say then that's barring a setback. So I don't know right now, Geoff, why he wouldn't play, but I've I don't know what to say anymore about this guy. I mean, it's 11 months now. I know it's a calf injury now. The foot injury healed about a month ago. I don't know what to say.
It's a unique situation, Adam. This is one of the few guys that we sometimes get either differing information on or even have a different view of, right? I've said all along, I just never felt he was going to play this year for the Eagles.
Where did you come up with that, by the way?
Well, as I've explained many times, I just felt like
gut feeling.
It's part gut feeling, part the vibe you get. Sometimes you don't get the full story, but you talk to enough people where where you kind of form your own opinion based on what you hear. I mean, again, and I'll go back to this. He has guaranteed money on his contract for next year, right? No, not guaranteed. He has money left on his contract for next year. If he's on the team next year, he's making money. So the Eagles don't want him to make that money, you would think, because they want to move on, right? But if he gets hurt right now, if he gets a real catastrophic injury, let's say he breaks his leg, let's say he has the same Liz Frank, and that means you can't cut him for free. You'd have to pay him with an injury settlement. He's got to pass the physical,
right? By the way, that rarely happens when a player can. I mean, it really happens. But for 21, the guaranteed money is gone. But the problem is, because of the acceleration from the restructure. There's a lot of, obviously there's going to be a cap hit, but then what they'll do is if they cut him like we expect. Plus, remember, Geoff, they've got the dead money from the dummy years because of the restructure.
Right.
So that they're just have to, they'll use the post June 1 rule, and that's what they'll do to split it up. But it is what it is. They know this, not a secret, and they'll just have to live with it. But just getting back to the situation with him playing or not, I just don't understand why he wouldn't be ready unless he has a setback. Now you're kind of hinting. I know you're not reporting this, but you're kind of hinting that you just wonder if he either A, wants to play, or B, is there something else behind door number 2? I don't know.
Right. Well, think about it. On Monday, the Monday after the bye week, they had a light practice, kind of like a 10-10-10, just a light practice, right?
Yeah.
Alshon Jeffery didn't participate in it. Now,
in the practice of the walkthrough, do they ever walk through?
I'm sorry, the walkthrough. He did. Okay. Not, I don't think whatever they did on Monday, I was told he did not participate in.
Really?
Yes.
I just don't understand. Why do you think I throw my hands up? I don't know what this. I'm puzzled by this because I'm a pretty strong source on this. I'll leave it at that. And this person's been right on everything, so I don't know why. But again, you've detailed this really interestingly. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Let me add one more element to this story. All right. If you're Alshon Jeffery, you're getting cut this offseason, correct?
You would think. I don't know.
You got a pretty strong I
don't know what they've told him. See, I'm not privy to because we're not there yet. I haven't even.
Well, come on. Let's talk in reality. I mean,
the reality is he won't be on the team. Obviously, he's not going to be on the team next year. There's no chance. But
cut or traded. Okay.
But right. Yeah, he's 30.
So let me get into the point I'm going to make.
Go ahead.
You're not going to be on the Eagles next year.
Okay.
You're also going to be in a contract year. If you're getting traded, it's your last year. If you're cut, you need a new contract. So do you want to risk going out there, like I just said, getting hurt, going into a already tumultuous offseason where some teams are going to not have as much money as they expect because of COVID and the salary cap going down? Does it make sense to go out there and play, as you've mentioned, backup X 10 to 12 snaps a game, potentially get hurt again? Or does it make sense to keep your body fresh as can be, not play, and at least you go into this year's offseason with no medical questions about you? I think so I'm not, again, that's a vibe I get from being a reporter for a long time, that everybody thinks in terms of dollars and cents.
Intuition.
Not just the players, so does the GM. The GM may not want to have him get hurt and have to pay him next year.
I could just tell you from a front office standpoint, they definitely want him to play.
Yeah.
This isn't a Le'Veon Bell situation where he had falling out with the head coach.
Okay.
He looked bad, and they also, because of the potential of him to suffer a debilitating injury where he couldn't pass a physical the next spring. I just don't get the sense that they don't want him to play. I haven't got that all along. I've asked the right questions. It's just that I think people close to the situation expect him to play, and then you've got your information, and I'll say more. Let's move this forward so we can move on. Let me ask you this question: if he plays this week, the next week, because people want to know this. They asked us on our show on The Fanatic. You and I got a very healthy discussion on Monday night. Well, how much would you play him if he's physically ready? How much would you play him behind Fulgham?
All right, so I have to now wear a hat like a coach because I wouldn't
Well,
want to play him anyway.
hey,
But
people want to know. For fantasy, too, people are killing me with this question.
for fantasy, he's not a. I mean, what?
No, but how much will he cut into Fulgham's role at X, do you think, if at all?
I don't think he will. I think if Alshon Jeffery plays a few snaps at X, they're just going to move Fulgham to either Z or Y or stack formation. They'll do something to get him on the field. Also, I don't think it has to be one or the other. There's a couple other guys you can get off the field.
Okay.
Greg Ward can come off the field.
Yeah.
So or you can play 4 wide receivers and go 10 personnel. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you can do.
Right. Very well said. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well. All right. So, by the way, and we'll really get. I mean, listen, I could be stone cold wrong, and we could probably get a good idea again with our Friday morning pod. If we know that he did something Wednesday and Thursday, then then it looks more and more like he'll play.
Sure.
If he's practicing in full.
Yeah. And again, so we can move to Ertz and some of the other players. It's the calf. It's not the foot.
Right.
He was close. I mean, once the foot got right, it's amazing. Like the timing is like he had a calf injury. Don't ask. I don't know what the hell. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I believe it's real. I mean, people have asked me if he's faking. I go, no, he's not faking. Mm-hmm. It's a real injury. It's a calf strain. I just don't understand why it's taking so long. And they felt pretty good before the bye that he was going to play, and there it is. So we'll see. Ertz, remember, he's got the high ankle sprain. He cannot play this week because it's the third game of the IR rule. He's eligible to come off against the Browns. I was told at the time of the injury it's 4 to 6 weeks. This would be on the lower end. He had a very similar injury to Christian McCaffrey, same area on his ankle. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't put a high probability of him playing against Cleveland. But with Zach's ability to come back early, and he's done that over his career, I wouldn't rule him out. I don't count him out for anything because he's pretty tough.
Okay, how about the O-line with Lane Johnson and Jack Driscoll?
Yeah, so both right tackles. So let's start with the starter, Lane Johnson, with the ankle surgery, the tightrope he had in mid-August. He came back too early, toughed it out as he always does. He's got this MCL sprain. He's very questionable to play this week, Geoff. As I understand it, we'll see. I mean, it's okay. He kept having the setback with the ankle, and then he had the MCL sprain. And we know Lane. I mean, he's a tough guy. He wants to play. He's got to show me something. He's got to get on he won't play if he doesn't practice. Simple as that. I mean, I'd still say very questionable because he's got. I strongly suspect either one or the other has not healed yet. I don't know if it's the ankle or the knee. Well, the MCL should be good that should be good by now. But again, he's got 2 injuries. He's come back from. We'll see how he's listed later today on the injury report, and we'll see if he's practiced. But I'm not giving the green light yet. Not based on what I've heard. He's got to show me something. And then Jack Driscoll. My good friend Chris Mortensen from ESPN reported it was a 2-week injury for Jack Driscoll. So by that time frame, he should be available this week, but we don't know yet. Now, here's the question. If Lane is not available and Driscoll's available, and obviously Matt Pryor, and if Seumalo plays, like I believe he'll play, barring setback, what do you do at right tackle?
So you're asking, is it Mailata or is it Jack Driscoll?
Correct.
So the real question is Mailata? I'm finally saying that correctly now.
Jordan Mailata, yes.
Is Jordan Mailata really the backup swing tackle, or is he really the backup left tackle?
See,
that's because how much this coaching staff liked. I mean, we've talked about it, and you saw it in the season opener. This staff really likes Jack Driscoll at right tackle. Really likes him.
Right, but I'd rather. Here's the thing, though. And yes, Driscoll is got versatility. Once he puts on more girth, more weight, he'll probably play guard too, because that's what they want him to do. Mm-hmm. But I think they got to go with Mailata. But I'm actually pretty certain of it. That's their plan. But we'll get this confirmed once we get through. If Lane's playing, then we don't have to worry about that. But although actually we need to find out anyway if he's as you outlined it very well, is he just the backup left tackle or is he the backup at both positions? We'll find out. Defensively, Malik Jackson.
Wait, real quick though. Let's answer 2 questions really quick because these might be part of our people ask, but I think they're pertinent to the discussion.
Go.
If Isaac Seumalo is coming off the injured reserve, somebody has to get cut. So you said it would probably be Brett Toth, right?
Yeah. Oh, I said this on Monday's show. We were going through the roster. I just talked about who made sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Right. If Lane is available, Jack Driscoll's available. They have so many linemen.
Right. So who's also inactive? So let's say Toth is the guy that's cut. All right.
Well, let me ask you this. It's either Quez Watkins or Toth to me. When I looked at the roster, It just made sense because Toth has no chance to get even dressed if everybody's available. Whereas Quez Watkins, okay, he's been inactive lately. You get Jeffrey back, he certainly won't dress. Let me ask this question, because this is the way front offices look at this. Who's got more value to them?
God, I mean, neither has much, but it would. I mean, why would you have Brett Toth act? Yeah, I guess that's the question. Do you risk losing one of these guys?
Right.
I don't really worry about.
Waivers,
I'm sorry,
right?
but I don't really worry about losing Brett Toth. I mean, they lost him once. It's not like
exactly right. Exactly.
Plus, you've got you got your starting 5, and how many you're gonna have active in the game? Because your backups. Let's say Lane Johnson plays, and let's say Seumalo plays. Then your backups are Mailata, Pryor, and Driscoll. Right, that's your 3 backups right there. So Opeta's not going to. Is Opeta on the 53 right now? I think he is. Right.
Yes.
Well, he may have to. I mean, how many guys are you going to keep? You have Toth is gone because you assume that if Seumalo comes off, Toth has to go. And I'm missing somebody, right?
We've got Peters.
Yeah,
Pryor,
Opeta.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got
Mailata, Driscoll, and Pryor. That's 4 backups right there.
9, 10. They've got 11. Yeah, they've really got 11 offensive line on the 53. They don't need that.
No. So Toth would probably be gone.
Yeah,
and maybe Opeta too. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And maybe perhaps Opeta as well would just not be active. I don't know.
Or not. I don't think they'll do this because they played him a little bit. Jason Huntley. I mean, he's really not needed because if Huntley was returning, okay, if he was returning kicks or punts, that gives him a reason to keep him. But he's not. No, right?
He's not doing anything. He's really not.
So,
he's just taking up a roster spot.
Yeah, so let's go to defense, right?
All right, real quick, though, let's remind our friends about PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of all 4 Philly sports teams, including the Union, so make it 5. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto, so make sure you're checking them out. Also, find them on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. And let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right, let's get into the injuries on defense, Adam, because it's not as long as of a list as the offense.
Exactly.
Let's start at the line with, go ahead, Malik Jackson.
Yeah, you got Malik Jackson with a quadriceps strain. It keeps recurring. It keeps catching him during the game. Going to the week, my sense is he'll play, barring setback. I don't feel as strongly as Seumalo or Sanders, or I even hesitate about Jeffrey. I'm waving the flag, man. I kind of I don't know what to think. It just bothers me.
You're going to come around my way eventually, Adam.
You know what? I'll tell you what, I should have. I heard you just because, I mean, you have to understand with Jeffrey, it's like they have the information. They have the best information possible on Jeffrey because they're around him.
Sure.
And the medical staff says, oh, yeah, definitely within 6 weeks. I still have never gotten a straight answer. I don't know if you have, on why he was not available within the 6 weeks. Because based on his trajectory where he was really doing well, they thought it was a cinch.
Well, the calf thing kind of came up. I mean,
but it didn't within the 6 weeks, I don't think.
Oh, I guess it did not. No. Well,
I don't know.
Conditioning, maybe they didn't feel the conditioning was there
but
at
anyway,
the time. Who knows?
Malik Jackson, they do expect him as of now, as of Wednesday morning. The trajectory is for him to play, but he also needs to get through. But I feel least confident of all of them just because it keeps happening. He just needs to not have it happen. But quite frankly, they're going to have to sign Hester off the practice squad or elevate him. One of the two. Someone's got Raekwon Williams. Someone has to be elevated. They can't go in the game with just 3, considering Jackson's injury.
No, they can't.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, unless they feel like they're going to get into more of a NASCAR-like look on 3rd down and play some defensive ends on the inside, then they could get away with it, although the Giants run the ball a decent amount, so I would want 4 defensive tackles, just to be sure.
Okay. Yeah, you really have to be safe. At corner, LeBlanc with the quadriceps and Craig James with the hamstring. We don't know much on those guys yet. We'll follow up from what we learn on Wednesdays and Thursdays practice and how they look from our people. But Craig James. See, the thing is, for Jaquette not to be brought up, one of the two has to play, or he's going to be brought up again. They're just They have to,
right? Because
they're just they're too short on corners and literally too short because some of these guys are short. Anyway,
our friend Devontae Busby was available. If you go back to the days, he got claimed by who? Who claimed him?
He got claimed by Denver, who were used to be. But no, what I meant was, with some of the Eagles corners are not very tall, other than Slay.
Right.
And when you've got Darius Slayton, who's 6 feet, they got Giants have a couple guys who are over 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And also when you try to match up on tight ends. And man, I'll tell you what, 88, Ingram's starting to really come on here. And of course, we know he dropped the touchdown pass against the Giants, though, Geoff. So Eagles are going to be challenged, man. The Giants are no joke. We'll have more on our preview on Friday, man. But they're starting to play well under Joe. Don't be the judge.
All right. We will clearly have more information on these injuries on our next podcast that drops Friday morning. I think we'll have a great idea on who's really going to be in and who's going to be out, and we'll follow up on that. And, of course, we'll have the practice reports as well. Let's get into the Q&A session that we promised, Ask ITB, taking a lot of questions from our Facebook community page. We're going to start off with a question from Benjamin Gold. It's a great question. Why have the Eagles been comfortable with this group of running backs? What are they seeing that is telling them this is good enough? It's a good point, because I'm not sure, Adam, that they are seeing something that's telling them it's good enough, but I think they're going forward with this plan anyway. I mean, we know finances played a role earlier in the offseason in how this running back group looked. They were not going to spend a whole lot of money on backup running back. They made a couple of bids, they got outbid, and they didn't make an aggressive move after to make sure that they got a guy.
Yeah, so I put on our show 3 weeks ago. All I said was, I didn't say the Eagles told me this, but I thought Bo Scarborough, if the Lions would cut him, would be a good guy to bring in. We had a bunch of questions about this. The Eagles have not brought him in for workout, nothing. So they're clearly not interested in the guy. So I'm puzzled by the fact that they've not brought a power back in. It's one thing if Clement was a 17 Clement, then you don't need to do that. The coaches clearly don't believe in Clement enough to put him in. They just don't play him. Very little. He hasn't looked bad lately when he's got in.
Well, what do you think the role of a power back should be?
Help close, take a little bit of the wear and tear off Sanders, particularly in the fourth quarter. If they have a big lead, I get it, folks. The Eagles haven't played like they ever get a big lead. But if they do, or just to give a little break for Sanders, here or there, a couple carries here, a couple carries there, take the rushing load off when you need a inside runner. Tough inside runner like Scarborough, who's big and can get to the second level, but they clearly don't believe that for whatever reason.
Yeah, do you think speed is particularly important for this kind of running back?
No.
So what's wrong with Elijah Holyfield coming up and playing that
role?
And
he's not fast at all, but that's fair. I love, but they clearly don't believe that. And
why is he even on the practice squad?
I don't know.
What's the point here?
I'm befuddled with this one because, quite frankly, if I'm the Eagles, let's just assume they're going to win a division. You definitely want to have some. You might as well take a look at Holyfield, because what is Jason Huntley really giving you?
Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Squat. Yeah, I don't know. He's giving you a lot of really good 40 time and and measurable stuff, I guess. But I don't know.
That's true. It's an analytics. It definitely analytics had something to do with it, because I talked to someone from another team who mentioned that to me at the time of the transaction when they claimed him. That his numbers, his analytic numbers were really strong. And we know now, I know he's explosive, but I mean, what's he, again, to move on here?
Yeah, he's not even returning punts or kicks or anything, though. So what is he doing?
Man. The Eagles are, what's interesting about this one, it's just studying them over the years, particularly since 17. Man, Peterson and his group of coaches are real big on versatility. Like, you got to do more than one thing, the more you can do. Well, what does he do? What does Jason Huntley really do other than he's a changeup, a couple times a game? I don't see it.
Did you ever see the movie Office Space?
Yes.
When the two Bobs are interviewing Smikowski, and finally they get frustrated and they go, "What is it would you say you actually do here?" And he goes, "I'm a people person." I can see just Huntley like yelling at you and me, "I'm a running back, damn it." Well, what are you doing?
I do not know. IDK.
I do not know. All right. Well, that was a good question. And I don't see any other solution. If they're not going to pick up Scarborough and they're not going to promote Holyfield, then I don't really know if there's going to be anything. I think this is your crew for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and they also, before we move on to the next question, which is also really good, they clearly want a certain body type. Yet, I think this is pretty telling, though. Peterson, before, or it was in training camp, I think, or in one of these Zoom sessions, might have been in June. I don't remember when it was, but he made it pretty clear that he wanted Carlos Hyde, who's a power back, who's got versatility.
Right.
So I just don't understand why since then there are guys on the street with size.
Yes.
Lamar Miller's on the Bears practice squad. For the life of me, I don't know why the Bears haven't signed him or called him up. I know he's coming off ACL reconstruction. He's 30, but the guy's got really good versatility, high character guy. I don't understand it, but
I didn't even know Alfred Morris was in the league until the Giants called him up from their practice squad.
Well, here's the funny thing on that Giant game, that game against the Bucks, the Thursday night game. I see 41. 41 is usually a DB's number. Occasionally, like 49 with Singleton.
Yeah, or a fullback.
Right, or fullback. Right. So 41. I'm like, oh, who is this guy? I go, Morris. Oh my God, it can't be. So I checked the roster. I'm like, oh my God, it's Alfred Morris. This guy won't go away. It's Alfred Morris. Wow.
I know he's played for every single NFC East team except for the Eagles now. So he'll have to finish.
He's like the thing that for those of you over 40, remember the thing that wouldn't leave on Saturday Night Live?
Right.
Anyway.
Right. All right, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code ITB for a special offer when you sign up. That's code ITB for a special offer when you sign up only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, moving on to our next question from the Facebook community page. It is from Aaron Puga, who has asked us questions before. He writes that I felt that Brandon Graham, probably could have been a candidate to be a cap casualty this offseason. He's quietly having a career year. Do you think the Eagles are more likely to keep Graham as part of their future, or do you think they can let him walk and roll with Barnett and an extension for Sweat? Really good question.
This combines Sean Wolford's question, who kind of asked similar questions. So, Graham's going nowhere. He'll finish his career as an Eagle. Great Eagle. One of the better turnaround stories that was really not reported very much. Let me see. He was drafted in 10. First 2 years were, I hate to say, a disaster. They weren't very good. He had the ACL injury, a little bit immature off the field. He had some issues. He just had to get his head straight. And when I say head straight, he just had to mature. Okay, whether he met his wife, whatever, became a father, whatever. Certain turnarounds you just don't hear enough. But I heard pretty strongly back then that he finally got it. When he got it, became a leader. It's one of the more impressive turnarounds of a guy. Look, you remember he would block fans on Twitter, block reporters. This is when he had enough of the criticism, and now he's just wonderful. He's a wonderful guy, really a high class guy, and will be in the Eagles Hall of Fame someday. And I still would argue he's better than Jason Pierre-Paul. Some people might not agree. I get it's the Earl Thomas situation. I understand also same draft, but Graham is a star that not a lot of people know about outside Philly. Or if you don't watch the Eagles, you don't know about him. But then other teams will tell you how much energy he brings, and Geoff, he's so relentless on every play. I mean, he's a great example to younger players. I mean, he definitely will not be going anywhere next year. Now, the question is, Geoff.
You say that very confidently, but I'm
positive, 100% positive.
Okay, but then you have to evaluate a little bit what kind of moves Howie can make, because he clearly has to be cap compliant, which means he's going to have to shave off salary in a lot of different places. And there are guys like Jason Peters and Alshon Jeffery. I mean, it's not going to be that difficult to get to the cap, but A, the cap might be lower, and B, you would always like to be several million under the cap so that you can make some moves. So if you really want to get in a position where you've been for the last few years, where you have some flexibility, and if you need a player, you can get one, Howie's going to have to really make some difficult decisions. And what you're saying is, I mean, is this sourced, or you're just feeling
it's based on my conversations with people with the Eagles, where I just feel like I kind of know how they feel about him.
Okay.
Now, Derek Barnett, he's got a $10 million salary, which becomes fully guaranteed in first day free agency. So as I've said for months now, he'll either not be an Eagle, they'll cut him, they'll trade him, they'll extend him and lower that cap number. He will not come back. He will not come back with that salary. There's just that cap number. They got to lower it.
Right.
The cap for the Eagles could be, and all teams could be, as low as $175 million.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of work to do. They're definitely going to have some tough decisions. But Graham will retire an Eagle whenever he decides to retire. I wouldn't have said that now. I will tell you just before we move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said that before the season started. I wasn't totally sure about Brandon. But this is, as Aaron said, and I totally agree, he's actually quietly having his best season of his career. Who does this at 32 years old at that position? All the way around.
No, it is very rare, right? It reminds me of, Andrew Whitworth has certainly been a player who's seemingly gotten better as he's gotten older. So that's another example. But no, that's fair. And to get to Sean Wolford's question, which is tied in, do you see Sweat being likely for an extension? Because we've talked about him with the knee and the bone on bone, and wondering if you're ever really going to get a second contract. However, he's a good enough player, Adam, that, I think maybe you could get you can sometimes sign role players to extensions for
Sure.
really team-friendly
Exactly.
money.
Exactly.
So it's
Right.
possible that,
Right.
that Josh could be extended this
Sure,
year.
after the season. They have to wait 3 years, and this will be after the season. So I
Right.
think both could, Sean, answer your question. It's just this is more for off season when we'll delve on this probably after we get through any if the Eagles make the playoffs but then they lose, we'll start to get in because we'll get into coaching stuff then more, and then we'll start turning the page to free agency and what restructures they'll have to do, who's going to be cut. But they love Sweat. The Seahawks called for Sweat and Barnett. A couple other teams did. In fact, actually more than a couple other teams. My understanding is the most calls Eagles got were on the D-line because they have the deepest D-line in the National Football League. And they figured out, hey, Philly's got Barnett. They need to make a decision on him. He's playing really well. Let's just call.
That's
Teams
smart.
were asking. Sure.
That is very smart. All right, let's move on to our next question from Nathan Goffnett. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
If TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton continue to play well during Nate Gerry's IR absence, does Gerry get, I think the word he meant is relegated to depth to the third linebacker personnel, right, or is Jim Schwartz going to continue to support his guy and play Gerry?
Yeah, this is
great question, man.
Well, it's really not his guy. It's Ken Flagel's guy.
Yeah, Ken Flagel.
Yeah, that's really the reason. And Schwartz's call, but Flagel's the one who pushes for Gerry, and he gets what he wants there. So, this is a tough question. It's a really great question, really, Nathan. What do you got on this one?
I suspect that Edwards and Gerry, first of all, Jim Schwartz had a press conference this week, and he
on
did
Monday.
Speak very highly of TJ Edwards and of Singleton. But he was asked about those two in particular. It was not like he was throwing Gerry under the bus.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that as long as the team is playing well for the next week or two, and by playing well, I just mean holding the fort down, those two linebackers, then it's their jobs to lose. But I do think you'll see Gerry mixed in potentially in certain sub packages where they feel he might be better equipped. Certainly as a dime linebacker, that's not really TJ Edwards' strength. Right now it's been Alex Singleton, but I don't think they went into the year thinking Alex Singleton was a dime type of linebacker either. So I could see them minimizing. Sometimes you have to take a player, Adam, who's supposed to just be a specialty player anyway, and just put him in that role. I've mentioned this a couple of times, right? Several years ago, Chip Kelly took Nolan Carroll and he made him like a jack linebacker. He took him out of the outside and he put
Billy
him
Davis
inside.
did. Yeah,
Billy Davis. That's true. Whoever's idea it was, but it was a really good idea because Carroll was a way better short area coverage guy, and he was a good blitzer too, and you can blitz from that spot. So with Gerry, I think you can put him in the dime and have him kind of just relegated to that as your dime linebacker instead of having to play him the whole game, 3 downs, and risk him getting exploited.
Okay, yeah. To me, though, when they're two linebackers, they got to, assuming Edwards and Singleton continue to play well, they have to be they're better than Gerry. It's not even up to debate. They're just better football players.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, I get Flagel's point about Gary's smart and he gets things set up correctly, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
It's about performance. He's just not good enough. When you compare, Edwards is a good find for them. So Singleton, not that he's a star, not that they're ideally what you want, but for what they need, they're okay, and they're both getting better. It's been both were unheralded guys who were totally on the radar, and Edwards, as you told us back in the spring, lost weight and he looks good.
Yeah, I think they're perfect for the nickel because in nickel, which you're in most of the time, it's first and second down. You want some guys who can stop the run, but also be athletic enough to run with some tight ends, and because a lot of teams pass first and second. But Gerry is perfect for when it's 3rd and 6 or longer, and you want as much coverage on the field with your 4-man rush, and you just want to get cover guys out there, and you just put them out there and have them run with either a running back or a tight end. I think that's the best use for him. Okay. All right, next question comes from Nick Fairman, and he says, what's the biggest positive about the season thus far? I think we all need a little talking off the ledge. And Adam, I've answered this question many times. He's the story of the season, in my opinion. There's one big story of the year, like feel-good story, and then even the second one doesn't compare.
It's got to be Nate Herbig. Got to be. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. How did you – No, it's got to be
Fulgham. I've never heard of a story like this. I mean, a team claiming a guy off waivers, they cut him. He comes back. He becomes not only their best receiver, one of their best football players. It just doesn't happen. It's not like the Eagles have a bad roster. They have a good roster. You know, It's one thing if this was an expansion team and, he's sticking out like a sore thumb, but they're a bad team. The Eagles haven't clearly played to their roster construction yet. They should be way better than they are, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And you can listen to those 2 shows with Geoff and I did, our previous 2 shows on offense and defense, where we broke down everything for the first half and what the second half should look like. Fulgham is just looks like he could be a star player. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but I've asked people. I asked Greg Cosell this question. Nobody could seem to find a weakness with this kid. I mean, how do you explain this?
I don't know how. I think that's what makes it such a great story, is that it defies any real logical explanation. I sometimes wonder what the Lions and the Packers are thinking as they're watching this. Not that those two – look, the Packers have Devontae Adams. The Lions have Galladay, who's hurt, but Marvin Jones. It's not like they're all hurting for good pass targets.
No,
but still, who would want to not have Travis Fulgham?
Exactly. And I don't know – I did say when at the time that I'd heard that they felt like he kind of needed to move on. He needed a change of scenery. Nothing bad. He just
could also be something you say when you don't really know.
But he just wasn't. He wasn't moving up at all like he did here, where he just balled out, as they say.
Right.
Look, they cut him twice. They, whatever. We'll know more as we plug our line sources. We'll learn more about it. But it's been really one of the more remarkable stories during the Peterson era here. I'm really. I don't quite frankly. I don't remember anything like this before here. But it's a pretty cool story. Then I would say, obviously, Mailata has been a great story. We did because the one about that one is we had no idea what to expect because he never played before,
right? And
it's been quite the story. I mean, it's certainly not perfect. He's ways to go, but the job that he did against Pittsburgh really was remarkable. Didn't see that. I thought he'd get housed, and he didn't. Right. And did a good job. It wasn't his fault. It was Jamon Brown's fault. He did a good job there. The next game against the Giants wasn't so good. I get that, but that's a great story. Sweat continues to play well. Geoff, who else do you like who's been a good story?
I would say if it's like a tie for second as far as feel-good stories between Jordan Mailata, I would say Darius Slay being Darius Slay, everything the Eagles needed from a corner, because there have been so many failures at corner acquisitions in the past that it's great that he lived up so far to the hype. And then I would also say Brandon Graham's career season is probably a nice, but I still think all of that is a distant second to Travis Fulgham.
Yes, and I would also add Rodney McLeod playing way better than I expected. I didn't see this. He's doing a great job. That would be a good story. The 2 linebackers we talked about, Edwards and Singleton, particularly Singleton, because, he was one of their best linebackers in training camp along with Edwards, and they, for whatever reason, Flagel wouldn't play him, and now he got forced to, and now he's a player. So Derek Barnett, also another good story. He came in a little bit underweight, I'm told, in training camp, and also he was down for 6 weeks, so you didn't really know what he can do this season. He's looked good. He's been very consistent, which is very important. Nate Herbig, also a good story because he never played before, really, and he got a chance to play. That's been a good story. Greg Ward, just been very, very steady, under-discussed. He's done a good job.
These are people who are just doing good jobs. Or they're not all great feel-good stories. But okay. All right, next question is a really good one, Adam. I know you're going to have a lot to say on this one. Right. It comes from Kyle Martin, and Kyle asks, what was the dynamic between John DeFilippo and Doug Peterson? Is there any possibility Peterson can pluck DeFilippo from Chicago, promote him to offensive coordinator or assistant head coach, assuming that Deuce would, get a chance somewhere next year? And I think you have the resounding answer to that question, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's – I think that ship sailed. They had an opportunity to bring him back in. I know that both sides are friendly and they talk, like coaches do, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
Probably – in fact, it was never really discussed seriously. Probably would have been smart if they went after him, but go ahead.
Well, when he left – you can't blame the Eagles too much. They didn't have an offensive coordinator vacancy. Frank Reich was still with the Eagles when DeFilippo left. It wasn't until Josh McDaniels reneged on the Colts job that forced the Colts staff to find a head coach, which was very late into the process. Then they hired Frank Reich, but by then John DeFilippo had already, I believe, gotten a job with Jacksonville. Was it?
No. That was Minnesota. It was Minnesota.
I'm sorry, Minnesota. Yeah. Minnesota. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Eagles passed on him. They had an offensive coordinator at the time.
Right. No, the only thing they could have done is and said, hey, John, if Frank doesn't get the job with the Colts, no. If
he didn't even interview though at that time.
I can't remember. The timing was just crazy. The timing.
Remember, McDaniels reneged. This came because McDaniels had to go to the Super Bowl first. This was like 4 weeks after the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
He was long gone. Yeah.
Right. McDaniels verbally agreed. He changed his mind.
Right.
Which is bizarre. But and the funny thing about that story is Frank was not even on the radar. Just it was all Josh McDaniels, and then certain people got involved and you vouched for Frank, and it's been a good story. He's done a really good job there. But yeah, I just don't. It's weird because first of all, Doug Peterson's not giving up play calling. That won't happen. And DeFilippo is, he had the situation in Minnesota. He's known as the best quarterback developer in the National Football League. That's not me saying. It's other people he's worked with and also people who know him. And you talk to other teams know how good of a coach the guy is. But I don't see it. I've run up the flagpole, and everything I've heard is like they kind of like their own guys. And, well, we'll see how that works out after the season. We've talked about the situation. Wentz has got to get together, and coaches got to push him to do it. But DeFilippo's with Chicago, and they have their own challenges. They've had a 3-game losing streak. They can't block anybody. The problem is the Foles is under siege every game. They just can't. They lost 3 offensive line starters. They're struggling, and that's their problem there. But look, they all got along with him. I mean, that's not the issue. The issue is like Doug has a history of he doesn't want to go back to other coaches. He likes to promote from within, or they want to bring new coaches in. That's just kind of the way they do it. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but that's just kind of the way they do it. As far as Deuce, I had a couple people with Eagles tell me that they think he's going to be a really good head coach because he's got such great command and players respond to him. There's been no talk ever about him being an OC anywhere, just so you know. I mean, people from other teams have never brought it up to me ever.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Well, there'll certainly be a certain number of vacancies this year.
He should. He's got. So see, the NFL has got to do a better job of not only identifying minority candidates. Talk to anybody with the Eagles who's worked with him. Deuce is a potential superstar head coach. I'm telling you, he's really good. He's a teacher. You've covered him before.
I actually know some. I have an idea of what his staff might look like if he's a head coach.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I mean, the guy
with me, some of the guys, yeah.
Okay, so look, the guys, the league's got to do a better job identifying candidates, not just minority candidates. He should be on lists. They needed for the fact that he's never been on a list other than he interviewed for the Eagles head coaching job after Chip got fired.
Right.
They needed the NFL search committee needs to do a better job. Period. End of story.
All right. We got a couple more questions left. Reminder, get that 20% off and free shipping using the promo code ITB at manscaped.com. You get your lawnmower, your crop cleanser, your crop care kit, your refined cologne, your what is it what we always talk about? The ear and nose hair trimmer, which is called their weed whacker. All that great stuff. The holidays are coming up. 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code ITB. All right, next question comes from Corey Shaw. He mentions that he knows that they've changed the medical staff several times the past few years, and he's wondering if there's anything else they can implement to help avoid so many injuries and anything that they stopped doing when Chip left that might change for the positive, might help change for the positive. In fact, I don't think most people realize this, Adam, but Jeffrey Lurie maintained a lot of what Chip Kelly brought to the Eagles from a sports science standpoint. Even after he fired Chip, he kept Sean Holes on for quite a while. He kept the whole slushies thing that everybody got a big kick out of, the personalized slushies that the guys drink after practice.
It's funny. Other teams do it. I've seen them at practices. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Every team in sports science, just for the record.
Right. But Geoff made a concerted effort to keep a lot of that in place. Okay. Even after firing Chip. So I don't know if there's anything that they necessarily need to go back to from the Chip Kelly era, as he asked in the question. And again, this year is a hard year to really have that discussion because the Eagles while they've had so many injuries, are not alone. I mean, I think a lot of people who we talk to think that the adjusted training camp, the no OTAs, the lack of conditioning that players would normally have going this year have led to not just the Eagles being, I mean, the 49ers have been decimated.
John Lynch said that, Geoff, John Lynch said that a couple weeks ago. Exactly what you just said, that not having all this. And when you don't have your players in your building and you're not supervising them, you do worry about that, because you have to find out how they're training. So, yeah, it's a good question, Corey. It really is. But I expect if we have a normal offseason that you will not see as many players hurt, because I've heard really good things. Geoff and I did a show after the 18 season. We were very critical of the medical staff because we had great intel on it. It was the sprawls, seemingly taking forever to come back. The way that it just was, agents reach out to us and we're crushing the Eagles medical staff. And I think some of it was unfounded. I just check into it. Agents get pissed off because it's their players, but some was definitely true. And, the Eagles knew that things had to get better. And they brought two guys in wrath, because the Rams, Geoff, and the Vikings, if you ranked the top 5 teams that have the least amount of players on the injury report every week, Rams are typically number 1. Vikings are like 3 or 4. It's just amazing that I don't know why some teams do it better than others. So what did the Eagles do? They knew this, and they brought those guys in.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, it certainly hasn't helped them curtail the injuries, but as you mentioned, guys have come back. Like Jalen Reagor has twice come back from an injury faster than people thought. And so we haven't had anyone out other than Alshon with his weird situation.
Nothing has taken longer. Right.
Longer than we thought. Right. Okay, next question from Steven Seligman. Is there any push from Jeffrey Lurie or Howie to organize the coaching structure differently, like having a defined offensive coordinator?
This is a good question. I would say, Steven, not in season it won't happen.
Right.
But I think you're on the right track here. If they don't make the playoffs, then we could see Armageddon. I mean, using logic.
About this a lot, right?
Yeah. Using logic, Steven. We all know if they don't make the playoffs with all the money they've invested into this roster, Jeffrey is very proactive. We know he got involved in the coaching firings. Came from him. He pushed for it. Everybody knows this. It's been written, it's speculated, said, reported. We know that. So we know that Jeffrey gets involved. If the offense does not improve significantly from what it's been in the first half, I do believe there'll be an OC next year. I do. I don't see how you don't. It's a great question, one we have not really talked about before, but just knowing the way it works, very few teams in the National Football League don't have an OC, or in New Orleans, Sean Payton calls the plays, but he has an OC. Pete Carmichael's been with him for several years, who helps him game plan, but Sean calls the plays. Look, you could give whoever it's going to be, if it's Press Taylor still with them next season, you could either, if they think he's doing a good job, they could promote him to OC and have even more input. Or it could be Rich Scangarello, or it could be someone from another team. I wouldn't rule anything out. If this offense doesn't go play the level that the owner and Roseman and the front office expects, I do believe you're going to see some changes in offense. In fact, you could take that to the bank. No one's going to put up with this. This is not. They've underachieved significantly. There's no excuse for it.
Right.
I don't want to hear the injuries. Every team has injuries. Come on.
Like we say all the time, they won the division last year and fired 3 coaches, right? 2 years ago, they made the playoffs. They fired, I think, 2 coaches. So even if they make the playoffs this year, if they continue to underperform, and that's the real bottom line here, then there's going to be changes, because that's what the Eagles do. And that I'm not saying it's not needed. I'm just saying that's the history of the organization.
Exactly. But I could tell you the underachievement of this offense, it's not just injuries, folks. Is it a part of it? Sure. Okay. Let me just edit what I said a minute ago. Injuries certainly have a part in it, but the underachievement against Dallas, okay, that can't happen. And is Wentz playing well? No, he's not. But it's Carson's. We've outlined. You could hear, if you haven't heard our show that we did last week, I suggest you listen to it. We outlined everything we've heard from everyone we've talked to about why Wentz is struggling. Some of it's on him, some of it's on coaching. Things could be better, but we can't keep blaming certain things. At some point, coaching matters, and it always matters, and it's got to be better. Simple as that.
All right. Moving on to a question from Levon Nelson. I think I got that. Levon.
Levon Nelson. This is a great question, by the way. I don't know why I haven't thought of this. Go ahead.
Thinking about Elton John right now. Levon.
Yeah, right.
All right. He asks, do you believe that Dallas Goedert gets healthier and back to game speed, or that as Goedert gets back healthier game speed, that the offense will flow more through him like it used to Ertz?
It's a great way to phrase it. You know what? Now you ask it that way. And again, no one's told me this at all. I'm just looking at it from a conceptual standpoint. Goedert, I had heard when Geoff and I put that report out on Saturday before the deadline to activate him, what I had heard was he looked so good in practice that week or whatever. I don't know. When did they start practicing that week? Wednesday, or I think he was the one player that was not activated on
Right, he was activated on Wednesday, yeah.
Right. He looked so damn good. They were like, by the way, yet another player is coming back earlier than expected. He definitely did. He came back a week earlier. I believe, Levon, I strongly believe that it'll go through him instead of Ertz. That again, we're guessing sort of, but why do I say it though, which is more important? Because he's an all-around tight end. He was drafted to eventually replace Ertz. Zach is 30, just turned 30 a couple days ago. Zach, though, if he's back to normal, because he obviously knew Zach was struggling, they need someone to move the chains more. Zach is certainly unbelievably reliable, great hands, gets open. We know that. But Goedert, Greg Cosell, our friend from NFL Films, who's part of the ITB family, Greg has told me for years that Goedert is more explosive, and he can those seam run passes, man. Goedert is a junior case Kelsey. I know he's not as explosive. I understand that. But he's a big hulking guy, man. That's the difference between Goedert and Ertz. So to answer your question, I think we'll go more through Goedert than Ertz.
Well, I think it's a fascinating question because
great question.
It almost assumes a little bit that the reason why the offense has flowed through Zach Ertz the last 2 years is simply because Zach Ertz has been their best playmaker, which is true. He's been their most reliable target, but as we also know, the team has really struggled at outside receiver and staying healthy there, whether it was Deshaun or Alshon, and that it was out of necessity that Zach Ertz, the offense flowed through him because there was really not that many other options. If you go back to 2017, it was such a balanced offense that I don't know that it flowed through anybody. I thought Alshon had great games. Zach had great games. The three-headed running back committee had great games. In fact, the one thing that stands out about that year, Adam, is that there were only, I think, 3 players that had a 100-yard game that year, either rushing or receiving.
Yeah.
And so now, I think Ertz had one, Alshon had one, and Torrey Smith, I think, had one.
I'm thinking Blunt. Oh, God, how did I remember?
Blunt against the Chargers.
Oh, the Chargers. That was a game. Oh, my God, it was incredible. And I had friends at that game because, the Eagle fans took over that stadium, that soccer stadium.
Right.
And the Chargers were so embarrassed by the fans were they dominated, and apparently there were a lot of people on that trip, business people who work for the Eagles, and they were just blown away how the Eagle fans took over that stadium. It was pretty incredible.
It was crazy.
And it shook apparently when I don't know how much it shook, but you could hear it move. You could feel it, I guess, if you're in the stadium when Blunt went off, when he was just killing on those long. When he took over that game, it's pretty cool.
Yes.
But
so the point I'm getting back to the point here is that now that Travis Fulgham has established himself as a possession receiver who has this level of dynamic ability to him.
Possession plus.
That I don't know that the offense per se, when healthy, when all those guys are on the field, and by the way, Miles Sanders is also a guy who's going to get the ball a certain number of touches. I don't know that it's not a little bit more balanced like 2017 where it runs through a different person each game. And I think that's what they would like.
I would say this, though. When they throw it, it's going to the number one target will be Fulgham. I don't see that changing. Now, number of targets may go down from 11 or 12 or 10, 11 to 7 or 8. That could happen because you've got Goedert now is 2 weeks healthier. You've got Rager's good. We haven't mentioned him. He's going to be a way bigger part. That's their plan. You get Miles in the pit. Yeah, you it's a great point. I love the way you set that up because conceptually there's so many targets and this offense has a chance to be dynamic despite all the issues. And then if Seumalo goes through practice this week, he's definitely playing without any setbacks. He's definitely going to be back at left guard. So this offense could look damn good going forward if everybody's on the field.
Sure could. And if the quarterback has his issues settled out, it could be really, really good.
Yes.
All right, last question. We'll finish it off with a question from Jean-Philippe Comeau. I hope I got that one right as well.
Jean-Philippe. Yes.
Comeau. What about the offensive line, he asks? What's your assessment of the new faces? Mailata, is he the future left tackle? What about Driscoll, who was playing very well before the injury? Do you see as a potential replacement to Lane Johnson? I don't know that we have to start talking yet about a replacement for Lane Johnson, because when Lane is healthy, he's a dominant right tackle.
Yeah.
You mentioned this earlier, and I agree with you. I think that the long-term vision, and that can change, for Jack Driscoll is to put on some weight and play guard. And we'll have to see what happens with Brandon Brooks coming back. I mean, we all forget about that, but he may come back. But
no, they're locked in at $10 million next year. It's fully guaranteed in March. They did an advance guarantee on his contract.
Right.
We wrote
so
that.
He'll be back. Yeah,
he'll be back. But that.
But Jason Kelce, we have to see if Jason Kelce's going to play again.
Yeah,
if not, then Seumalo might move to center.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts. But the good thing, Jean-Philippe, is that Mailata looks like he's going to factor in at left tackle. To me, at worst, it's a competition between Dillard and Mailata at left tackle. Driscoll could be their swing right tackle guard. Herbig has shown that he could start for a short period of time and get through it. They're in pretty good shape for the future, because that's the funny thing. Before we get out of here, folks, they never wanted this to happen with all these injuries on the offensive line, but they've learned so much about these guys, which they knew they ordinarily would not have learned. So they actually are in good shape here. And kudos to Jeff Stoutland and Andy Weidel and Roseman and their college scouts to find all these guys, because we didn't really know anything about these guys. They had to play, and you know what? Other than Jamon Brown, who's been a train wreck?
Nobody other than Jamon. No one's been a train wreck. Just the injuries.
Sure.
Why do I get this feeling, Adam, that like sometime next summer, Andre Dillard's going to be flipped to some other team for a 5th-round pick, and no one's going to cry about it?
Oh, it'll be more than that. They better, if they're moving him, they got to get more than a 5th-round pick. But I hear you.
When you're, maybe, but maybe a 5th for a conditional 4th.
I just think but I just think that Mailata's got so much in him. Mm-hmm. I know it's a challenge because he's a rugby player who's learning how to play football, but some of the tape that he's put out there, particularly a Pittsburgh game, you go, oh boy, this could be super special.
Yeah.
And you want to see him in a real offseason. Now that he's banked all these snaps, because he missed 300 to 400 snaps in the offseason. Offseason, May and June, and then training camp and preseason games. You're talking about actually probably close to 400 snaps. So anyway, that's what we got there. But this has been a good show, guys. Really good.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Great questions, great conversation. Really appreciate it. We'll be back Friday morning with our game preview. Finally, we'll have a game to preview. Eagles versus Giants at MetLife Stadium, 1:00 on Sunday. That will do it for Inside the Birds. This the latest edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. You can check out his work on YouTube, Sports Talk with Broads, which I may or may not be making a cameo on pretty soon.
Ooh.
And, you can find him on Twitter also, @Broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.